The World Cup draw is in a couple days, so to make sure you know exactly what's going on, I'm going to show you how all of this works. Before I do though, I want to mention that I will be streaming a live watch along of the World Cup group draws at 12 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. BST. This will be live on my Twitch. The draw itself starts at 12. I'll probably start maybe like 30 minutes before the draw actually happens, so just keep that in mind. But again, 12 p.m. EST is when the draw starts, and I will be live on my Twitch. So here's how things work. It's pretty simple, just a couple gimmicks here or there. To start, there are currently 42 countries that have officially qualified for the World Cup. 8 from Asia, 9 from Africa, 6 from North America, including the hosts, 6 from South America, 1 from Oceania, and 12 from Europe. There are also still the 6 slots up for grabs. Those won't be determined until March, but we do know 4 more European countries will qualify. Anyways, these 42 qualified teams will be split into 4 pots of 12. One team will be drawn from each of the 4 pots, and that will form a group. Now, pots themselves are organized based on FIFA ranking, so pot 1 will have the 3 host nations plus the 9 best ranked. Pot 2 then has the next 12 best, pot 3 then consists of the next 12 after that, and then pot 4 has the remaining 6 lowest ranked countries that qualified and the other 6 undetermined playoff slots. And expect pot 4 to especially create some chaos because there are plenty of teams in the playoffs right now that are ranked higher than the teams even in pot 2. So here's a quick example of a group that can happen though. Out of pot 1, Brazil, pot 2, Japan, pot 3, Tunisia, and pot 4, Jordan. But hold on one second because this group is actually not possible. Firstly, FIFA requires there be at least one European team in every group. There's not a single one here. Another problem with this group is that there can't be 2 countries from the same region. So in this case, Japan and Jordan cannot be in the same group as they are both in Asia. The only exception to this rule is Europe, who are able to have up to 2 teams in a group. Here's a couple more rules though. To avoid any of the intercontinental winners being drawn with a team in the same region as them, intercontinental playoff slot 1 cannot be placed in a group with a team from either Oceania, North America, or Africa, while intercontinental slot 2 cannot be placed in a group with a country from either South America, Asia, or North America. And finally, this is probably my least favorite rule of this whole thing. First and second place Spain and Argentina can only be drawn on opposite sides of the group from each other. This also applies for third and fourth ranked France and England. This is to make sure that there's no heavyweight battles early into the knockout stages. But what it really does is kind of remove the chances of us seeing an underdog like past World Cups. Look at 2022 Morocco, for example. They were able to have a slightly easier pathway to the semis because France and England play in the quarters. So with all of this said, here are some actual groups that can happen that follow all of these guidelines. One possible group is host USA, Australia, Scotland, and Ghana. Another one that would be pretty damn entertaining is Germany, Colombia, Norway, and the Intercontinental Playoff Slot 1. And we'll do one more just for funsies. Argentina, Morocco, Uzbekistan, and UEFA Playoff Slot whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter there. Now that that's all out of the way, let's briefly introduce all of the 42 officially qualified teams that will be drawn into these groups, just so you have a little more familiarity with these guys. Before we do though, there's one thing I want to quickly add. I am currently collaborating with Tokyo Dome City to give away to one lucky winner a free trip to Japan. Yes, you heard that right. Round trip flight is covered along with a 3-night stay at this premium room at Tokyo Dome Hotel. To enter, all you have to do is like the pinned post on my Instagram @Macwell, and then follow @Explore Tokyo Dome City on Instagram. And once we hit 25k on that account, we will give away to one lucky winner. But we'll only do it once we hit 25k. Another thing too is when that goal is hit, I will notify you guys one more time on the YouTube channel just to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to enter one last time, and then I will reveal a winner a few days later. The USA have already drawn into Group D as hosts. This is their second straight tournament since the trauma of 2017, and their best finish in this tournament came all the way back in 1930 when they finished third. No one really remembers that, and the Federation ignores what got them to that point in the first place, immigrants. So more recently, their best finish came in 2002 when they reached the quarters after one of the most iconic Dos a 0 results versus Mexico. It could have been the semis though, had it not been for a blatant handball that was never called. Mexico have already drawn into Group A as hosts, and this will be their 9th straight appearance. Their best finish ever was reaching the quarters in 1970 and 1986. Since then though, they've been subjected to a curse that has denied them any farther advancement past the last 16, but 1970 and 1986 were tournaments they hosted, so maybe there's a sign there. Just ignore literally everything else that's going on in the program. And lastly, there's Canada, who have already been drawn into Group B as hosts. This will be their second straight appearance since returning in 2022, and the Canadians have never made it past the groups. In fact, they've never actually won a game in 2 tournaments. Now we go on to the teams that actually qualified on merit. First ranked Spain qualified out of Group E in UEFA qualifiers. There, they scored 21 goals and conceded just twice throughout the whole campaign. This will be their 12th straight appearance, and their best finish was winning the whole thing back in 2010. Second ranked Argentina qualified by finishing first in CONMEBOL qualifiers, scoring the most goals of anyone else with 31, and they were tied for second least amount of goals conceded with just 10. This will be their 14th straight appearance, and they have won this title 3 times, in 1978, 1986, and recently 2022. And you can easily rage bait an Argentine if you simply tell them that every single one of them were illegitimate. Third ranked France qualified out of Group D in UEFA qualifiers, scoring 16 goals and only conceding 4. This will be their 8th straight appearance, and they are 2-time winners of this tournament back in 1998 when they hosted, and 2018. Fourth ranked England qualified out of Group K in UEFA qualifiers. They went a perfect 0 losses, 0 draws, and 8 wins with 22 goals scored. But not only that, they conceded 0 goals, the only team to do so in UEFA qualifiers. This will be their 8th straight appearance, and they have won this tournament once. That was all the way back in 1966. But with how the fans are so delusional in that, you would think 1966 was 2 days ago. Since then though, their best finishes were 4th back in 1990 and 2018. Brazil is 5th ranked in the world somehow, despite a pretty shaky qualification campaign and a really unimpressive run in last year's Copa America. But they are also footballing royalty because they have never missed even 1 tournament since this whole thing started in 1930. They have also won this tournament the most times out of anyone else, 5 times in particular: 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and 2002. 1994 was hosted in the States, by the way, so maybe Brazil can actually beat a European side in the knockouts now that we're back. Yeah, we'll see. Their qualification campaign does not support that hypothetical whatsoever though. They made it to the tournament by finishing 5th in CONMEBOL qualifiers. They had the 3rd best attack with 24 and only the 4th best defense. 6th ranked Portugal qualified out of Group F in UEFA qualifiers. In that campaign, they scored 20 goals and conceded just 7. This will be their 7th straight appearance. A lot of 7s here. Is that a sign? Don't get your hopes up. Sorry, I kind of spoiled the whole thing here. This is the first team out of pot 1 so far that has not won a World Cup. Their best finish came all the way back in 1966 when they finished 3rd, while a more recent best finish would be 4th in 2006. Since then, it's not been great. 7th ranked Netherlands qualified out of Group C in UEFA qualifiers, scoring 27 goals and conceding just 4. This will be their 2nd straight appearance since missing out in 2018. And when it comes to bringing up best finish in a conversation with Dutch people, it's like reminding a soldier about a life they were not able to save. The Netherlands have been subjected to the runners-up spot 3 times. That's the most of anyone ever in this tournament. This was seen in 1974, 1978, and more recently, 2010. Next is Belgium, who are ranked 8th. Again, somehow. They scored the 2nd most goals of anyone else, but conceded as many times as multiple other group winners and runner-ups. They also drew 3 times throughout the campaign. In fact, they could not beat North Macedonia even once. For Belgium though, this will be their 4th straight tournament since the dark ages of the early 2000s. And their best finish came very recently, 2018, when they finished 3rd. 9th ranked Germany qualified out of Group A in UEFA qualifiers after recovering from an initial scare at the beginning of the campaign. Germany has not missed the World Cup since 1950 when they were banned for certain reasons. They are also 4-time winners of this tournament, back in 1954, 1974, 1990, and 2014. Into pot 2 now. 10th ranked Croatia qualified out of Group L in UEFA qualifiers, and with ease, scoring 26 times and conceding just 4. This is their 3rd straight appearance, but more importantly, this is a country that has made it to 6 tournaments out of its 7 attempts to do so, which is really impressive considering the size of this country, and also the shit that it had to go through to gain its independence, which is made even more incredible by their best finish of a runners-up back in 2018, and they also finished 3rd in 2022. Morocco qualified out of Group B in CAF qualifiers. They breezed past the competition with 8 of 8 wins, scored 22 times, and only conceded twice. They are ranked 11th in the world, which makes them the highest ranked African nation in the world. This will be their 3rd straight tournament, and their best finish came in the most recent edition of it. In 2022, Morocco finished 4th after reaching the semis. They became the first African nation to ever ever reached the semis of a World Cup also. 13th ranked Colombia qualified by finishing 3rd in CONMEBOL qualifiers. This is a massive improvement from the time they missed out, as they scored the 2nd most goals with 28 and conceded the 5th least. Colombia, when it comes to football, is very rich in culture, but their best finish is actually just a quarterfinals back in 2014. 16th ranked Uruguay qualified by finishing 4th in CONMEBOL qualifiers with the 4th best attack and defense. This will be their 5th straight appearance, but they have made it plenty of times throughout the history of this tournament. They've also won it twice, back in 1930 during the Copa Pangea era, and also in 1950. 17th ranked Switzerland qualified at a Group B in UEFA qualifiers, scoring 14 times and conceding just twice throughout the whole campaign. This will be their 6th straight appearance, and their best finish came back in 1934, 1938, and 1954 when they reached the quarterfinals. Since then though, they've been banished to last 16 purgatory, so Switzerland hope to break that curse next year. Japan qualified out of Group C in AFC qualifiers. They dominated in arguably the most competitive group as well, scoring 30 goals and conceding just 3. That is both the best out of any team in that round. The Japanese are ranked 18th in FIFA rankings, which makes them the highest ranked Asian nation in the world. They have made the tournament every time since their debut back in 1998. This will be their 8th straight appearance. And their best finish was the last 16 in multiple tournaments, but they've also come painstakingly close to the quarters back in 2018 and 2022. 19th ranked Senegal qualified out of Group B in CAF qualifiers after recovering from a pretty bumpy start. But that said, they still scored 22 times and only let in 3 goals throughout the whole campaign. Senegal is ranked 19th in the world, and this will be their 3rd straight appearance since returning to the big dance in 2018, while their best finish came in the most recent World Cup when they reached the last 16. 20th ranked Iran qualified out of Group A in AFC qualifiers with 19 goals and 8 conceded. This was enough to be 1st in their group, but quite literally no Iranian is happy with how things are going, with public enemy number 1 being the manager. They still qualified though, I guess. For Iran, this will be their 4th straight appearance. In terms of overall appearances though, they're just behind Japan, but in every single tournament that they've participated in, they have failed to make it out of the groups. 2018 was the closest that they've come to the last 16, but they missed by just 1 point in, unfortunately, a group of death situation. 22nd ranked South Korea qualified out of Group B in AFC qualifiers without a single loss. They also scored the 2nd most goals while conceding only 7. For South Koreans, this will be their 11th straight appearance. This is the most of any other Asian nation. And their best finish was a 4th place in a tournament they co-hosted, and definitely didn't rig. 23rd ranked Ecuador qualified by finishing 2nd in CONMEBOL qualifiers despite a 3-point deduction at the beginning of the campaign. And they are pure terrorism ball, as they scored just 14 goals but had by far the best defense, conceding only 5 times. For Ecuador, this will be their 2nd straight appearance, and their best finish came in 2006 when they reached the last 16. 24th ranked Austria qualified out of Group H in UEFA qualifiers, losing just once throughout the whole campaign. They also scored 22 and conceded only 4 goals. With this qualification, they returned to the tournament for the first time since 1998. While this century has only seen them qualify once, in the past century, they were there a good amount of times, and their best finish was a 3rd place back in 1954. Since then though, their best finish has been the 2nd group stage. And to finish off pot 2, Australia, who qualified out of Group C as runners-up behind Japan. They scored 17 goals and were in a 3-way tie for 2nd least goals conceded. Australia are ranked 26th in the world, which is huge for Aussies considering this is the highest ranking they've had entering a World Cup since 2010, and also this sees them in pot 2. Usually in Australia, they're like pot 3, pot 4, and they really get shafted because of it. That said though, only just a tournament ago, they managed to escape this group and make it to the last 16. They also did so in 2006. Into pot 3 now, and we have 29th ranked Norway to start, who qualified out of Group I in UEFA qualifiers with a perfect record. Not only that, the nation conceded just 5 times and scored the most goals of anyone else. We're talking about Norway here. And by doing this, the Norwegians clinch a berth to the World Cup for the first time since 1998. And also, this was where they saw their best finish of a last 16 appearance. 30th ranked Panama qualified out of Group A in CONCACAF qualifiers without a single loss. They also scored 9 times and conceded 4. They returned to the World Cup after missing out on 2022, and this will be their 2nd overall appearance since making it for the first time in 2018. That showing saw them crash out of the group, so they'll be hoping for something just a little bit better this time around. 34th ranked Egypt qualified out of Group A in CAF qualifiers with flying colors. Not 1 loss, 20 goals scored, and only 2 conceded. They also returned to the World Cup after missing out on 2022, but the way they missed out is a little controversial, if you will. In their 2 overall World Cup appearances, though, Egypt has never made it past the groups. 35th ranked Algeria qualified out of Group G in CAF qualifiers, scoring 24 and conceding 8. This is another African team that returns after an absence, but this time, Algeria hasn't seen the World Cup since 2014. And their best finish came in that tournament when they reached the last 16 after giving Germany a better fight than France in the quarterfinals. 36th ranked Scotland qualified out of Group C in UEFA qualifiers after an emphatic victory versus Denmark on the final day. And by doing so, this will be their first World Cup since 1998. Scotland, though, has 8 appearances overall in this tournament. Every single one of them, though, has never seen them made it past the groups. Also, fun fact, they have not won a World Cup game in 30 years. 39th ranked Paraguay qualified by finishing in the last automatic spot in CONMEBOL qualifiers. But don't get it twisted though, because this is one of the better teams in this region currently. To finish off their qualification campaign, they lost just once in their last 12 games. With this achievement though, Paraguay returned to the World Cup after a 16-year absence. And their best finish was their last appearance in 2010 when they reached the quarters and lost to eventual champion Spain. 40th ranked Tunisia qualified out of Group H in CAF qualifiers, and they were scary good. 22 goals scored, but more importantly, 0 conceded all campaign long. This will be their 3rd straight appearance, but they have made the tournament 7 times total. However, just like other teams that we've mentioned before, they have not made it past the groups even once in any of those appearances. 42nd ranked Ivory Coast qualified out of Group F in CAF qualifiers, and just like Tunisia, they did not let in a single goal as well. They also had a better goal scoring record with 25. For the Ivorians, this will be their first World Cup since 2014. Before then, they also participated in 2010 and 2006. And just like Tunisia, they have also never made it past the groups. 50th ranked Uzbekistan qualified out of Group A as runners-up in AFC qualifiers. They scored 14 times and were tied with 2 other teams for the 2nd best defense. This will be their first ever World Cup, but quite honestly, this was kind of bound to happen no matter if it was going to be a 32 or 48 team system. Because Uzbekistan have been like the dark horses for the last 20 years in Asian football, and they're only getting better. 51st ranked Qatar qualified after bettering Oman and the UAE in the 4th round of AFC qualifiers. This will be their 2nd straight appearance, but also their first as non-hosts. Their debut as hosts went horribly, so they'll be hoping for a little more fortune in this tournament. 60th ranked Saudi Arabia qualified after bettering Indonesia and Iraq in the 4th round of AFC qualifiers. For the Saudis, this will be their 3rd straight World Cup, and their best finish was a last 16 appearance in 1994 when the US first hosted the tournament. So maybe there's a sign there. 61st ranked South Africa qualified out of Group C in CAF qualifiers with 15 goals scored and 9 conceded. This sees them back in the World Cup for the first time since they hosted in 2010. They also participated in this tournament back in 1998 and 2002, but they've never made it past the groups. On to pot 4, and we start with 66th ranked Jordan, who qualified out of Group B as runners-ups in the AFC qualifiers. And by doing so, they make their first ever World Cup in their entire history. But just because they're debutantes, do not overlook them because they finished runners-up in the last Asian Cup. So they do have some pretty valuable experience with these tournaments. 68th ranked Cape Verde qualified out of Group D in CAF qualifiers, which is insane when you consider this is after failing to qualify for this year's AFCON. Just like Jordan, this will be Cape Verde's first ever World Cup, and they are also one of the smallest nations to ever qualify with a population of just over 500k. Right after them is another African nation in 72nd ranked Ghana. They qualified out of Group I in CAF qualifiers, and quite like Cape Verde, they did this after failing to qualify for this year's AFCON. This will be Ghana's 2nd straight appearance, but since 2006, they've only missed out once. Their best finish came in the quarterfinals of 2010 when they were denied a winner by Luis Suarez's hands, and then Asamoah Gyan missed the awarded penalty. Considering this is supposed to be seen as their best ever performance, it's kind of depressing how it's not looked at that way whatsoever. 82nd ranked Curacao qualified out of Group B in CONCACAF qualifiers after securing a draw versus favorites Jamaica in their last game. This allowed Curacao to qualify for their first ever World Cup, and they are also the smallest ever nation to do so, as they only have a population of just 150k. Another shocker out of CONCACAF, 84th ranked Haiti. They qualified out of Group C in CONCACAF qualifiers after stunning a difficult group consisting of 2 high-profile nations in the region. The Haitians also pulled this off without playing a single home game in their country because of political unrest. This though sees them return to the World Cup for the first time since 1974. In that tournament, they crashed out of the groups. So, I'm not expecting much here from Haiti, but, I'd love to see a Cinderella run. And finally, we have 86th ranked New Zealand. They qualified by winning the third round playoff final versus New Caledonia, which sees them in the tournament for the first time since their debut in 2010. And fun fact about 2010, they were the only country to go unbeaten throughout that whole tournament. To be fair though, it was 3 draws, and they didn't make it out of the groups. But hey, you know, they still finished above Italy. Which now leaves us with just 6 more slots remaining, all undetermined, by playoffs that will happen in March. So let's just quickly go over every slot. To start, we have UEFA Path A, which can either be clinched by Italy, Northern Ireland, Wales, or Bosnia. For UEFA Path B, that can be clinched by either Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, or Albania. Path C, that could either go to Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, or Kosovo. And finally with Path D, it can either be claimed by Denmark, North Macedonia, Czechia, or Ireland. Then we have the remaining 2 intercontinental playoff spots. Path 1 can either be claimed by New Caledonia, Jamaica, or DR Congo, while Path 2 can either be claimed by Bolivia, Suriname, or Iraq. Alright, so now with that all out of the way, I feel like the best way to end this video is to do a little fun simulation, you know? We get to see how the groups could actually unfold and compare them to the real results tomorrow. Let's see how this goes. So I guess it also simulates the playoffs. That's pretty cool. All right. Okay, I'm not going to be able to comprehend this. Mexico, Scotland, Senegal, Italy. Jesus Christ, man, that could be insane. Group D is looking great. I would love this to actually be our real group. Tunisia, Switzerland, and New Zealand. Ignore the fact that we lost to Switzerland. Just, you know, that never happened. Are there really any other ones that like kind of pop up? I guess Group H as well. You got Belgium, Poland, Algeria, Japan. I feel like anyone could win that group, honestly. What else do we got? Spain, Egypt, Australia, Bolivia. Okay, nothing too crazy there. The Netherlands, Ireland, South Africa, Colombia. All right, to be honest, this was kind of a shit draw. Let's just do this again, okay? Anything that really pops out to me right now? Oh my, Germany, Uruguay, Denmark, that could be pretty good. Again, pretty easy group for us. Uzbekistan, Austria, and DR Congo. Brazil and Switzerland in Group G for like the 800th time. France, Ghana, Paraguay, Japan. That could be a pretty good one, honestly. The Netherlands, Colombia, Iraq, Algeria. I mean, yeah, that could also be a decent group too. Again, nothing too crazy. All right. One more time. Is this what gambling is like? Paraguay, Ghana, Croatia, Argentina, and Croatia. Wow, okay. All right. Okay, so right off the bat, this is already very unrealistic because it's saying Sweden will actually qualify out of a playoff. Mexico, Paraguay, Austria, Jordan, honestly, I'd watch that. That seems like a group that anyone could win. This one's pretty crazy though. You got Argentina, Croatia, Turkey, and South Africa. United States with Algeria, Switzerland, and Italy. I would prefer that to not be our group. Okay, this one's actually pretty good too. Portugal, Japan, Czechia, and Tunisia. Let me just do one more, okay? I'm actually getting addicted to this. Mexico, Qatar, Brazil, Croatia. Interesting. Portugal, Denmark. Belgium, Senegal. This one predicted New Caledonia to qualify. I mean, listen, if it happens, that shit would be fucking hilarious. Group K would be pretty insane, honestly. You got Germany, Sweden, Uzbekistan, and Ecuador. I would watch that. That'd be cinema. Let's see, what else is there? Is there anything else that's, Oh my god. So that was an overview of how the group stages work, and also a little brief introduction of all the teams that will be participating in 2026. But let me ask you guys this, are you excited for the group stages? Do you think the rules are a little too much? Do you think the rules are gonna kind of ruin the tournament a little bit? Like, you know, the one where it's like, the first and second ranked countries can only be on opposite sides of the bracket. And also another thing, did your team qualify? Is your heart in your stomach because the country that you support is in the playoffs? Or do you just want to end it all? Let me know. Of course, though, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balas, German Sayu 7th, Jeremiah Owusu Ajimang, Django, Anazir Makalankam, Alex Rod, Kentra Gatra, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Cheesebait, Winter Gel, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portugizer, Wise Orange, Polar Protos, Von Fan, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Lickstab, Mutanai, Apollo, Thrilling ADT 13, Los Milos, La James Braun, Vecino, Napside, Money Cash Host, Quantiavius Pork, Lilia Lovers, Stewed Monk, Red Yellow, Fuxi, MXN, Harry Maguire's Left Toenail, Flaquito, Thierry's Thoughts, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Krebs, Mohammed Altanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member on the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, but more importantly, follow that Twitch. It's going to be active again, somewhat, because we are going to do a live watch along for the World Cup group draws. Again, that is going to be on my Twitch, 12 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. BST. But until then, I'll see you guys.